Well, I guess this will be a three-parter since my phone decides to keep shutting off the video for some reason. Anyway, I have somewhat lost my train of thought in the frustration of getting this back started, but as I was saying, people on Twitter who treat me differently based on not even my race, they don't know my race, but my perceived race, are what I would call racist. The woman I was talking to before filming this video would disagree, though. She doesn't see much racism or bigotry at all in the world. What she sees is people who've been hurt. See, she thinks that if there's a basis for why someone feels that way based on how they were raised or in their life experience, that it's not prejudice, it's not bigotry. It's, just them expressing themselves, and that once they've come to understand why they're feeling that way, they can move past it. This got me to share a personal story with her, and I'll share it here as well. When I was younger, and this, I suppose, might be somewhat revealing for those of you who really care about racial identity. When I was younger, my mom married a black man, and I had a black stepfather who would hit me at times and was somewhat abusive. Now, I was quite young, and I didn't think that his family would believe me. My mom, when I initially told her, didn't believe me. And it wasn't until I brought it up in family therapy that something was done about it. He never hit me again once he was called out for it. However, for years afterwards, even after my mom and him split up, when I saw a black man who was older and bigger than me, I got afraid. It wasn't that I hated them. It wasn't that when I stopped and thought about logically, I treated them or thought about them any differently, but emotionally, my response for several years in my childhood was fear. I consider this to be racism. The woman I talked to, who may have a better perspective on it than me, she's been around a bit longer and lived in a bigger city than me, that's for sure. She wouldn't consider that to be racism because it came from a reason in my background. It wasn't prejudiced or bigoted that I was afraid of black men because I was just experiencing emotions due to an event in my past. Now, it's an interesting definition, but I couldn't come to an agreement with her. I think that for several years, until I came to an understanding about why the man who'd had some mental health issues and other problems had abused me, and that had nothing to do with his color, even though I logically believed the whole time that it had nothing to do with his color, it took some time to convince my emotions. I would consider that to be racism. So I've experienced it firsthand. I've also experienced what I would consider to be racism against me. But one thing that I can't say I've ever seen anyone experience in modern America is white privilege. In my video on Black History Month, I tell the story of a little boy who came from a family who had actually immigrated from Africa after having been slavers, not slaves. Their family was fairly well off and had profited from the slave trade. At the same time, I told the story of a little girl, actually the little sister of my ex-girlfriend who I was with at the time of this story, who was from a lower middle class family that came from not poverty, but certainly not wealth. They were Italian and had immigrated to America to find a better life with very little money. If that little black boy and that little white girl applied to colleges at the same time with the same scores, at most universities, he would be more likely to get in, thanks to his race, and to a degree, in some places, his gender, because the equality acts in college, which put quotas on race and gender, have started not necessarily backfiring on women, but have certainly started benefiting some young men as college campuses lean far towards women. There's just more women on campus, so men are becoming a minority. So that little black boy would benefit from affirmative action programs. The reason those programs initially, at least, were in place, especially the ones that have to do with his race, were to benefit people who had been held back by the slave trade. His family had actually benefited from the slave trade, something which they were very guilty about, though I didn't feel that they should be, since it was something they completely disavowed and that their ancestors had done. It had nothing to do with them. But it's still not right that he should get a college scholarship chance over the young girl that I knew due to the color of his skin. Because when you assume things about people's background or people's lives due to the color of their skin, well, you're making an ass out of you and me. I'll just leave it there, I suppose. So, white privilege may or may not exist. It's a very complicated subject, and maybe something that should be looked into more, but legislating based off of race leads to decisions that really I can't call anything but racist. The one type of privilege that we do know exists, that basically everyone can agree on, is wealth. There are also quite a few different things about one's background that can leave you privileged or not, as it were. So, I definitely think that we should keep giving scholarships out to the underprivileged. I think higher education, despite my last video being somewhat of a suggestion against going, can be very important. But I don't think that we should be basing any of these programs off of race. I think that we should be treating each other as individuals and spend more time looking into people's backgrounds and actual needs before giving out help to people based not on their needs or their situation in life, or even on their history, or on any oppression they've ever been through or that their ancestors have been through, but only on the color of their skin. To me, a lot of that seems racist. To me, when I look at government programs, I don't see white privilege. But I definitely understand where people are coming from when they talk about the years of oppression. And that's why, once again, I'll just ask you, for those of you who believe in white privilege, and I've talked to many of you, for those of you who believe in white privilege, but believe that white people currently have it worse off, you simply believe in white privilege because they had it better off for a much longer period of time than they've had it worse off, how long will it take, or what will it take to balance the scales? Anyway, I was thrown off by the clipping, and I don't have editing skills, so I'll be uploading this in 3 parts. But I'm glad that I'm getting videos out again. I'm going to go ahead and promise another one for tomorrow, even though I have no idea what the subject will be yet. or I'll be filming it tomorrow. It probably won't be uploaded till Monday or Tuesday. And let me know in the comments below what you think about why depression. Hell, if you like, you can even guess my race. Though really, I'd prefer we just don't talk about it. Anyway, thanks again for joining us. As always, this is the Devil's Advocate Debate Club. I'm your host, Cipher. Have a wonderful evening.